Hi, everyone. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the following podcast belong solely to the host and its contributors. They are not necessarily the views of our employers, organizations, committees, or other group or individual.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Brewing with Bim. I am Joey Whitney, and I've got with me David Campbell. What's up, David?
Not much. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Brewing with Bim.
So, we normally wait till we're a few minutes into this and forget to talk about what are you drinking, and then I'll ask you randomly, hey, what are you drinking? But today, it's going to kind of wear on us a little bit, right? Due to circumstances, and this is all David Corticus's fault, so he doesn't know it yet, but this is his fault.
Shout out to David.
So, David, what are you drinking?
So I have double fisting today. Okay, I got a what is this? A non-alcoholic Bloody Mary. So I had some leftover Bloody Mary mix in my fridge with some pickled green beans and jalapeno and garlic stuffed olives. So I threw that together with some ice, and then I got a goji and a acai berry tea.
All right, man. Yeah. Well, maybe
Yeah.
if you let that ferment long enough, there might be some alcohol or something that comes of it.
Just a little bit.
So,
What about you?
BWB fans, I am drinking the same thing pretty much. I have my own non-alcoholic Bloody Mary. It's got random pickled vegetables, which you probably can see there, and my fancy dancy little straw. And my Bloody Mary mix isn't as fancy as yours. I haven't been to the store in a week, so I've got some V8 juice. So before we tell everybody why we're not drinking today, I need to tell you something funny that happened to me. So today, of all days, is the day that we start not drinking.
Mm-hmm.
But today it was announced that Pennsylvania is going to start opening their liquor stores again. All right.
That figures.
So, Dave, yeah, it figures. So, David, do you want to tell everybody why we're not drinking today?
All right. So, really, again, it was kind of spun off of what we saw from David Corticus, right? The 75 hard kind of diet, kind of workout plan, right? 45 minutes a day, 2 workouts a day. One of those has to be outside. But really, I think the core of it is about focusing on bettering and improving yourself. Like, don't drinking alcohol, sticking to a diet, doing the workouts, reading 10 pages of a book, a self-improving book every night, and taking pictures of yourself gives you kind of that. I'm thinking, I don't know yet, but I'm thinking it's going to give you at the end of that light at the end of the tunnel to be like, oh man, I did that. That was cool. We're going to see, but.
So I am just covering some stuff up here. I don't want people to see in case I accidentally spin around my camera. There we go. All right. So now that that's out of the way, I think I should now that you've told them what we're doing, I should fill you in on some bad news.
Uh-oh.
The bad news of the 75 hard, and I don't know if you've looked ahead to see what the 75th day is. So the 75th day of no drinking is the 4th of July.
No, that's not okay. I had an olive in my mouth there, but almost choked on it. I was
thinking, I don't know what you had last night or when the last time you had alcohol was, but maybe we backtrack that a little bit, because I can do the diet, I can do all that stuff on 4th of July. I can eat pulled pork till my heart's content and nothing just but meat. There has to be alcohol on the 4th of July. It's un-American.
I know. I agree. We'll have to figure something out for that one. Maybe bend it a little bit.
We'll come up with something, man. So, before we jump into today's topic of Revit 2021, whoop, whoop, there's some fireworks, flying over. I have to ask you, man. So one of the hardest parts about this challenge for me is reading a self-improvement book. Outside of taking selfies every day, that's just not my thing. Mm-hmm. But finding a book that's considered self-improvement, something that's focused on growing yourself. And I've got totes full of books, man. Like books that I bought in college that I just never ever read. And I've got all kinds of history books. I thought, hey, this little I Am American pamphlet, make me a better American. That should count. It's so hard to find in my mind a self-proof book. How'd you land on the parenting one? Is it just one that you had laying around that you're like, I'm finally gonna read this?
Yeah, my mother-in-law, as I told you a while ago, one time she just came out and bought me like 7 or 8 parenting books.
She's like, you're a shitty dad.
Yeah, I kind of felt that way at the time, and I'm like, man, I was a little upset. Like, I was like, dang, that hurt. Dang, Tina. But kind of looking back now, I've got these books on the shelf, and I see this one called Parenting with Love and Logic. And I'm like, all right, you know what, maybe, because, honestly, I felt, with 4 of them, sometimes you just get a little overwhelmed, right?
I got 2, and I'm in the same boat, man.
Woo! I mean, it's crazy. And I'm like, if there's something in this book that I can use to kind of, add to my parenting arsenal, it's funny, but I like to think of it a little bit like teaching, right? I acquire different things from different places for teaching or for workflows that I can kind of use. You pick up these little pieces and you use it. It's the same thing with parenting. I'm hoping, right? Hoping I can skim through these books, find some kind of hidden treasures, and see what I can utilize. Yeah, it's I've been balancing that one, and then I told you I was actually lucky enough to have one of our subscribers reach out and ask me to read his book and review it. So I'm going to take on BIM Kit, the practical guide for building information modeling and maximizing its benefits in modeling. It's written by Jero. I'm sorry if I butcher this a little bit, but it's Jujarvi, I think it is. Jujarvi? That's something, yeah. Jero?
Way off.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're trying to say, but I'm sure you're way off.
I'm probably way off. I'm sorry. Sorry, Jero, if I do. Feel free to send that in and let me know how to pronounce it. I would love to learn. But I'm going to read this book as well. So I'm going to read 20 pages a day to kind of get a little bit more of that in.
Well, okay, then I don't feel so left out here because I'm reading like 20 plus pages a day because I've got the reading that I started doing for myself like last month. Part of this, our whole if you're going to be home, start using this time to maximize things that you use it to do things that you wanted to do that you maybe haven't done, better yourself, that sort of stuff. So while I was doing that, I was like, dude, I got hundreds of books. My wife has thousands of books, ultra rare, whatever, old books. We've got so many books that we haven't read or we haven't read in a long time. So it's just like, all right, I'll pick up some books, start reading. So while I'm tackling that pile, I figured, I've got to start looking at this. And I've already got my book pile queued up right there of stuff I plan to read in the next few months. So
yeah,
I don't know, man, busy times. But
oh yeah,
on top of that, I've thought of a little added flair to this challenge. I know it's going to be hard enough, no alcohol on a podcast where we talk about alcohol. It's going to be a pain in the butt, but one thing that I was thinking about is like, well, why not add an instant kind of achievement to this, right? So every month I'm trying to, I try to break down by weeks, but at least every month I try to tackle a series of goals, and they're pretty good sizable goals. But at the end of that month, again, if I break it down by week, it's even, more instantaneous. But I feel like I've got such a better, handle on things. Like I feel like I've achieved stuff. It's kind of like that old adage of make your bed every day. But by having these goals that I can set for myself, it's kind of instantaneous gratification in some ways. So a few goals that I've set for this month, and I've got a long ways left in this month. It's only 10 days left, but dude, I'm going to do my drone certification. We'll see how that goes. Rebuild my deck. Got a pile of wood delivered today from Home Depot. I have to finish the 650-page book that I'm reading now, and I'm only about halfway done. So 10 days to finish that. And the most complicated out of all these. So more complicated than sitting for a federal exam, more complicated than reading 300 something pages in 10 days of history, and more complicated than rebuilding a deck. I have to fix my damn weed eater.
Yeah, an impossible one for you.
It's an impossible one, man. I've been working on this thing for weeks. I've rebuilt the damn thing. I've taken it apart. I put a new carburetor on. It just doesn't work. So fun times, man. Fun times.
Yeah, that's like $100 well spent for me going to the store once the thing craps out. You know what I mean? At that point, I'm like, all right, thank you. You did your job. I'm going.
Hey, man, we got a podcast about construction technology, man. I'm not gonna let some, two cycle motor company. Damn it! I used to rebuild cars and
oh yeah, dude.
Stuff, man. Come on,
I
figure this out.
I rebuilt this '79 Honda CB650. I went through this whole build only to realize when I got to the end of it, turned it on, that all of the carburetors weren't in sync right. So I had to learn how to sync carbs and then replace all the seals and, ooh. But
is that like a inline, or it wouldn't be an inline? Yeah, inline 4. I don't know.
It was a yeah, I think actually it was an inline 4. Because I was thinking it was the 6-cylinder, but no, it was a 4-cylinder. It was a 4-cylinder engine. It was a nice bike. It was the first one I bought. It was like right after my first deployment for $500. It was nice. Buy. Yeah, dude, it was awesome. Yeah, I wanted to turn it into one of those cafe racers.
Yeah.
But I ended up stripping it down. I sanded down the
hashtag
tank.
David is a hippie. Built cafe race. Dude, you live in Portland, man. You. Oh man.
Yeah.
I love it.
You know, it's funny though. I'm working on my greenhouse out here, right? And this has been an ongoing project.
You just like led into it, man.
I did.
David is the hippie, and you're like, so I'm building my greenhouse, guys.
I'm building my greenhouse, and I've been experiencing a lot of the kind of design, like I would say the pains of construction, the pains of design and into construction, right? Because my design frequently changes. my design frequently changes. Luckily, I've got the roof going on, but you know what's funny is I realized that I did not do enough in the planning area, right? In terms of documenting as-built conditions to to put on this greenhouse roof, man. I tell you what, some of these trusses in this old shed. So what I did, guys, for those of you who don't know, is there was this old shed in the back of my property, and I've decided to kind of strip it down to the bones, right? And really just make it a greenhouse. I've wrapped plastic around it. I'd do all the bracing, everything like that. Found out when I got in there, a lot of it was like moldy. The studs would just, when I went to pull the stuff out, the studs came with it. So I had to, go through, re-support it, brace it. And I take off the roof. I'm lining everything up, for my new greenhouse panels. And I'm realizing that with some of these trusses, I have 1.5 inches difference in height. My roof of my greenhouse was doing one of these, so I've had to make several adjustments in my design there as well. And then I tell you what, the change orders that have happened in this job, I can't even tell you. I wish I'd have known all of this up front. I think at this point I would have gone prefabrication, right, or a little bit of modular, and just figured it out.
On rot, you probably should have torn it down, tried to reuse as much as the wood as you could, prefabricate the walls, the trusses, and go back up. But that said, man, this is a valuable lesson for constructability. It reminds me of getting, not to pick on architects, but getting an architect's model with the floor specified as, like you were saying, 1.5 inches or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But the material is actually, 2.5 inches. So you have a whole half-inch lip to deal with across the, the transitions. And it's all because, somebody didn't model it correctly, or they had something in there. So I'm just going to say on you, man, poor modeling, dude. Hopefully, as a subcontractor, you charged yourself for all those change orders and you made out pretty nice on the back end.
This is true. This is true. We'll see. I have to finish the project first, so we'll see kind of how I can level out with this. But I'm
Oh my
hoping
God,
for some
dude!
good
You are
returns.
living like real construction. You've got delays. You're not finishing on
Yeah.
time. You got
I can't get product
backlogs.
because COVID. Like the stores are every time
Oh,
if I go to Home Depot, I'm gone for like 3 hours because I got to stand in this line.
oh man, do you have to wear a mask to go in Home Depot now?
Yeah, you got to wear masks and everything. Which I mean, it is what it is. It gets
Just
really hard to see after a while, though.
yeah, they
Yeah.
just forced that here. We haven't had masks. I mean, fortunately, we Amazon everything or try to have everything delivered. But I went into Home Depot yesterday. No,
Hmm.
what's today? Say Monday. I don't know what today is, man.
Today
It
is
is-
Monday.
yeah, yeah.
Oh, it's
So I went to Home Depot.
420. Happy 420.
Yeah, you Portland folks. Man, we're starting on a holiday. We're ending on a holiday.
Yep.
You're starting on 420 and you're ending on July 4th, man.
Yeah.
So you got the munchies, poor dieting on the first day, and then you got alcohol on the last day. You're not gonna make it. Yeah.
We'll
So
see.
I saw yesterday though that Home Depot had a sign out saying starting, you know, today 420, you have to have masks to go out in public. It's like, damn, like I don't even have a mask. So I'm all like, I'm running up and down the aisles trying to find dust masks. Of course, there's no dust masks. I knew this before I started
Yeah.
looking. I'm, searching online all later that night. Everybody's, selling it, but they're selling like, a homemade cloth mask for $25. I'm like, are you
Yeah,
serious?
it's
Like, come on.
ridiculous.
So my wife rigged up some, using a bandana and, hair
Mhm.
ties or something. But my mom, I chatted with, she's been making them for nurses. Like my mom's a saint, but
Yeah.
she's been making them for nurses, and she's shipping us a few. So that would be pretty cool, man.
Heck
I
yeah,
get to
dude.
join the rest of society.
Yeah, Adrian just came in. She's gonna grab some papers.
Oh, that's good, man. That's good.
Dude, Adrian actually. Speaking of Adrian, there, she actually made some masks for us. Um, she had some old material that we kind of bought some material through for random projects. We've made our own blankets, like the twist tie blankets. We did one for my daughter's chair, kind of reupholstered a chair in her room.
Cool.
And she had some cute kind of different types of material. And actually working with PPI, they used to have Pinecrest Fabrics right next door. So
Yeah.
with Pinecrest, they would do these sales of fabric or giveaways even. And Adrian made us a few masks. Got some elastic from what is that? Joanne Fabrics or something like that. She got some elastic and then just stitched it all together and good to go. It was pretty cool.
Cool, man.
Yeah.
We've been talking about making things, building things, poorly building things, except
Yes.
for Adrian. He built things.
She did
pretty
well. She did well.
We've talked about fixing things poorly. Again, my fault. Carburetors, all that fun stuff. But you, my man, have had the pleasure of actually going back to the design side, playing with the software, Revit 2021. You've installed it. I'm sure there, thousands of people have installed it at this point, except for me, because my computer stopped.
Yeah.
For my new computer, fingers crossed this week. With this Revit 2021, though, seeing all the hashtag generative design, a lot of different things. Walk me through it. What are some of your favorite features so far? I've watched all the videos, drooled, but at the same time, I'm like, I can't do anything. I don't have it.
Yeah. Well, I would say one big thing to note is that when you download Revit 2021, the families don't come with now. You have to go to a separate Autodesk like site to download them, or actually when you install Revit, when you open it, you'll actually when you get into Revit, you'll see a install families button right next to the insert families, and you can actually grab the families from there. But we'll include the link. So we'll upload the link here after the podcast. And you guys can follow that to find all of the content if you haven't been able to find it yet. That's just a good side note. Now, as far as awesome features, dude, there's honestly a whole list of things I'm excited about for Revit 2021. The MEP connectivity kind of features, like the work sets kind of synchronization on that, no more kind of holes of, like, let's say somebody they own these certain elements and can't work on them because it's connected to a system, right, or something like that. That's very annoying, and it can cause a lot of delay. So they've worked on different things like that. But as far as my top 5, I did write them down. Yeah, I did.
Good, man. Good planning.
So, dude, I was sitting here and I wrote down, I stared at this for a little while because I had my number 1 as generative design. But as I was going through,
Easy, man. It's too easy.
it's exactly, well, it's not easy. Actually, I needed to move it back. It's not my number 1 because I had to sit back and I thought about like, huh?
I was gonna say it's too easy to say generative design is your number 1, just because it's a give me title, right? It's a
and
thing at this point.
It's yes, and it's well, the big thing is it's a cool idea. I love the fact that they're integrating it in. Don't get me wrong, like the capability with the design options and the 3 different scripts that they give you the access to, it's awesome. It's just, for me, I want more, right? Like calculating masses and seeing these windows and stuff. I want more. I want more. I do. I'm a little selfish like that, I guess. But or was it gluttonous, greedy?
Gluttonous. Yeah, you're a glutton, man.
I am. So my number 1, actually, the thing I was most excited about for Revit 2021 was actually the Revit to Inventor linking. I thought that was awesome in terms of fabrication workflows and enabling fabrication through combining Revit into Inventor. Yes, I mean really, they actually enabled the AnyCAD associativity for Revit data, and what it does is it maintains an associative link from Revit into Inventor, either through a shared file drive or #BIM360, right? If you throw it up on BIM360 and you link the Revit model from there, each time that Revit model updates, the fabricator only has to, they got to update the fabrication model. But I believe there's there's actually, yes, there's a setting, a button inside of Inventor that updates. And I'm like, that's awesome. Really?
Yeah. That's a really impressive thing. I've, without giving, too much away about industries and stuff, but I've worked with somebody in the past who had really complex. I've worked with a lot of people that have complex setups, but they had this one particular where they couldn't specifically go to Revit because they needed to keep the associations that Inventor has when putting stuff together. So the best way was to go to Navisworks.
I remember this one actually.
Yeah. It was a point layout workflow and issue that we kind of went through, and ultimately we ended up going to Navisworks. But it seems like something like this, where we can actually go from Inventor to Revit and have that bidirectional link, is just a step in the right direction to getting us to kind of this whole single source.
So they're still working on that one. They're still working on that portion. Right now it does go from Revit to Inventor. So we can actually pull our BIM data into Inventor.
Oh, but not Inventor to Revit?
Not Inventor to Revit yet. No, not yet. They're still working on it. The big note I did want to make about that is when the Revit data is brought in to Inventor, your appearance information is actually carried over. And you get a nicely organized representation of your building in the browser. So it makes it a lot easier to navigate. Cool.
Sounds cool. So with that, then you can bring in specific views. You can choose.
You bring in the whole model, dude. So actually, it brings in at what I've read is that it kind of I want to say it translates it as like a mass, right? And then Inventor actually applies like the materials and things based off of that mass. It can actually update to how that design changes. And what I'm seeing, like, really that's awesome about this, of course, is being able to take those design models, enabling those fabrication models, but also we need to go back, right? Send those fabrication models back into Revit to show them, like, if we can start linking that back as you were talking about. I mean, I'm very excited for the whole process, but as soon as you can start breaking down these assembly packages, fabrication packages, and really get all that data, lay out everything that we can utilize with BIM 360 and Revit in the field, and making these really just good parts, these good assemblies that are precise and coordinated, I think it's going to help the entire industry.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I'd love to. So, I mean, we can bring Inventor to Revit, but every time we bring an Inventor to Revit, it disassociates elements. It doesn't keep the hierarchy.
Yeah.
And that's something that's really important when you start talking about the fabrication side of things. So if we could keep that information, that'd be that'd be an amazing enhancement. But so far, what they've done with what you were saying is where you bring in the whole model into Inventor, the Inventor engine, which is very powerful. So if you've done anything where you've designed bridges, preliminary design bridge for bridges and InfoWorks, and you brought into Revit, it uses that Inventor engine to create Revit families. It's a very powerful engine, Inventor in itself. If you're using Civil 3D and you create parts, it uses the parts builder engine as Inventor. Like, it's a very powerful engine. So being able to leverage that for your fabrication still, where you're not just dumbing down some Revit drawings to bring in, but you're actually bringing in that model, kind of like a switchback mode. That's pretty awesome, man. I'm a big fan of that. I think once I get this software installed, new computer, all that fun stuff, you and I are gonna have some fun testing where we'll be trying to break stuff a little bit more. But
oh yeah, dude. Well, that actually leads right into my number 2. Is that Revit 2021 is actually it's released with Dynamo 2.5, and they have released new Dynamo scripts like with Revit. So they've actually, pre-baked. And honestly, dude, that it's really exciting when you start talking about when they're incorporating stuff right out of the box, right? And of course, I went into some of the release notes about the actual Dynamo scripts, and I did want to talk about that because we do have some really good new Dynamo scripts, not just for let's say overall modeling. Like, they of course brought in the structural connections nodes. All of those are with Revit out of the box now. But
it's a big thing you were talking about even last year, where we were talking about the future of Dynamo inside of Revit and what that means. And you were always talking about bringing in the structural elements and being able to, if you've got footings or something like that, and you want to place plates on it or something like that, you can automatically write that in because it knows it's a structural entity. You can break it down by type and place all this stuff. Like, that was a phenomenal thing that I just never thought of. That was last year you were thinking of this, so now it's into it.
Oh, dude, it's actually expanded off of that. It has. I'm excited. That actually goes right into my so kind of number 3. I'm going to move generative design back down to number 4, but that number 2 with new version. I'm just pushing it down. I'm pushing it down.
All right, generative design. You're cool.
You're cool. Yeah, get back.
There's more useful stuff. Yeah.
Get back to me when you get a little more functionality with you. So, but I want to say with the new version of Dynamo, they did a lot of fixes with the scripting, incorporating like new Python scripting and things. There were new nodes that were included though. Elements are joined, get joined elements, join geometry, unjoin geometry, get intersection, set pin status, element is pinned. It's on the Autodesk Knowledge Network. They added some new nodes themselves that you guys can utilize to grab different elements, especially if they are joined already. Now, a big portion of that, I do want to say, does lead right into my next kind of section with it, is since I do a lot of structural stuff for my job, I do get kind of exposed to a lot of the different stuff, and it's cool. But we start seeing Dynamo, right? And Joey, as you just said, like, I was talking about this stuff last year where it recognizes these light conditions to put these connections, right? That's great. And yes, it is out of the box, but they've taken it a step further with Revit 2021. The structural integration, the structural analysis integration is actually built into Revit. And
What?
yes, they built it into Revit. And if you think back to Revit 2020.2, they added in the functionality to um, pull like your analysis results and adjust your sizing of your connections based off of your analysis results, right?
Yeah.
So tie that all together. Now you have your analysis results right into Revit pre-baked. When you draw out these connections, you can go ahead and have it run this automatic analysis and have Dynamo pick up what connections need to be resized and how they need to be resized, or if they need to be stiffened. You know what? They added a new stiffener. Actually, with Revit 2021, they added a new structural stiffener piece, and they've been dude, I'm going through my entire list right here, but you see along with this, they're bringing in more of the advanced steel functionality, like that enhanced steel modeling into Revit. And dude, as I'm seeing all this come together, with Dynamo that's picking up light conditions, that's being able to tell you, hey, this isn't to code. This needs to be, it needs to be this size, or we need to shoot out for this. That's amazing to me, right? Because that's going to help us learn, but these younger generations kind of learn, but also model better, right? For constructability and code compliance, things like that, kind of cutting off these issues before they become bigger issues. And
we're going to be the generation that says, well, back in my day, we had to go and pick this stuff from a ribbon. You talk about everybody
yeah,
else. Oh, I had to know all these codes and I learned on DOS. We're going to be those guys that's talking to the future guys that are playing around with VR, and generative design just
Yep.
happens by, moving constraints around and stuff, picking nodes or whatever, telling what they want to be. And it's just automatically giving them all the options. We're the guys that are like, back in my day, that wall command was up on the ribbon and I had to specify the materials that I was using. And if it wasn't there, I had to create that family.
You darn tootin'.
Love it, man. I love it. You were mentioned earlier with advanced steel stuff. Are you starting to see with Revit 2021 potentially the reason, I guess you would say, for staying inside of Revit for detail work, or is that still something you might want to ship off to advanced steel?
I mean, if I'm honest, I still got to check out more. They say it's enhanced and there's better dimensioning. There's better. It really depends though, I guess, because if you're already in Revit and you're going to advanced steel, if you've already got all your, I want to say the bill of materials, you've already got you've already got everything built in advanced steel. Great. You've got all those standards, your template, everything's great. Cool. Then do it. If not, then keep it in Revit as much as you can. See what we can push. And if you can't push that out, okay, that's when you bring in, let's take it to advanced steel through that link, right? We have a link that we can just push it out and at least
problem for me though, man. If I'm in Revit, the last thing I want to do is go to a CAD-based program.
No, I don't either. And I understand it. And it's a whole new way of thinking too. If I'm honest, I've gotten into more of the advanced steel workflows. I got exposed to teaching it, things like that. And it's a different, like I said, it's a different way of thinking, right? When you're stepping from BIM centric, where you're collaborating, we're getting all this data together, and just the way that I, place a column in Revit and the constraints that I have and things like that, to how I place a column inside of advanced steel, different, right? The folder structures themselves, it's all.
You're placing them for two different reasons, right? So there's a difference between modeling and detail. Whenever I model inside of Revit, I'm doing analysis, I'm doing loads. If I'm doing stuff in advanced steel, it's because I want to fabricate from it typically, right? I mean, that's what I've seen.
Yep. I completely agree. I mean, that's the purpose of it. It's you need that level of detail for fabrication.
I just want to do it all in Revit if I can, man. That's what sucks. Like, let's build this. So we're, it's a pain in the butt to do dumb detail lines and drafting inside of a Revit view. But let's come up with some tools to make life a little bit easier there, rather than just creating the families, but still make it show through. I don't know. There's got to be a happy medium that we're missing.
Yeah. I
Somebody's got
agree.
a plug-in somewhere that we just don't know about, man.
Somebody's got it. Somebody's got it worked out, and they're
Yeah.
just not telling anybody
Yeah.
else. Exactly. That's it, man.
DI Roots, whoever else is out there, Kobe Labs, anybody, let
Yeah.
us know if you got a plug-in for doing dumb drafting in Revit, but making life a little bit easier.
That is something else I do want to start doing at some point. More shout outs, to like DI Roots where they put out the Dynamo content.
I've
just
made it through like 10 minutes of the first hour and a half video, and before kids came in screaming, I want to buckle down, put on some
dude,
headphones,
trust me. Yeah.
just knock it out, man.
That's on my list this week, as I said last week, right? And then I just got completely swamped.
Well,
but
it's here's the thing, man. Give yourself that goal, like we were saying, where you've got things that you're going to accomplish every month, and that's your goal. Like no matter what, this is going to get knocked out. I'm going to try and do as much as I can the first week. So the second, third, fourth weeks, I'm coasting if I can. But life happens and you end up pushing stuff off for whatever reason. But make it your goal. I'm going to make it my goal. I'm not going to do it this month because I've got too much already on my plate. But next month, I will do the DI Roots Dynamo course.
Yeah. Well, you're right. So this month I do. I'm actually going to be doing some self-improvement in Navisworks. So I need some work with my timeliner and the animations. You and I were talking about this earlier.
Are you pulling phases, or what are you going to do there?
What's that?
Are you going to pull from Revit phases?
Yeah. That's my plan, is to actually phase everything out in Revit and export into Navis and then do phasing and animation timelines. But animations through the timeline. But I really want to tweak that and then kind of play with it. And it's really what I'm doing. I want to try to connect that kind of workflows as I can. And I really like when I start thinking about where my weaknesses are, right? I actually had a little review earlier, and they always ask you in those reviews, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? And when you sit down and you look at that and you're like, man, how can I improve? Where are these areas that I feel like I can improve on? And one of them was the timeliner in Navisworks. I'm like, you know what? That's where I'm going to go. I'm going to get it. I'm going to learn it. I've been pushing this off a little bit.
I know the answer, man. My strengths is that I'm awesome. My weakness is that I'm too awesome, man. This is Red Sox hat I'm wearing, man. It's got me feeling super cocky. I don't know. I was watching some.
This is our cake.
Cake? How's that a weakness?
Jumanji.
Oh man, I love it, dude.
Is that a weakness? My kids have been watching that so much. It's ridiculous.
Oh, Jumanji 2 is great too, man. They're good movies.
Yeah.
So I was watching John Krasinski's got the guy from The Office, Jim Halpert. He's got this weekly news show that he does called Some Good News during the whole coronavirus stuff. He's just like, I just want to get good news out there. And on one episode, not this past week's, but the week before, they had they got to go to Fenway. They got some nurses out to Fenway. Big Poppy was there. I'm like, oh man, I was watching this. And I'm like, all right, start wearing a Red Sox hat as much as I can. And I've worn it for 2 days, but
yeah, that's funny.
Got it for this podcast, damn it. No, cool. Yeah, man. I think with the Navisworks thing that you're mentioning though, I don't know, man. Like you know the workflows, all that stuff. It's for you. It's just literally discovering how this tool actually works, or how to maximize it. Rather, how it works, maximize the tool.
Yeah, exactly. Once I learn all of the picks and clicks of that tool, once I learn how to make the connections and go through it, then I can analyze the pain points of that process and say, okay, there's got to be a better way to do this, or how can we do this better, and another kind of portion of that is allowing myself to, I guess, talk to that level. You know what I mean? Because that's really what I want to get to is analyzing like the whole kind of construction process and seeing where we can improve, right?
So chat with a lot of experts, a lot of guys that know way more than you and I do put together. I mean, I think about it in terms of you and I, we are like, we've got our feet underneath us and we can get running whenever we need to.
Yep.
But the guys out there that are just leading the charge, writing their own software, they're just amazing.
Oh yeah.
But even those guys, I think about, I'm like, nobody specializes in all aspects of construction, not from design and engineering through fabrication or through coordination and fabrication through installation. Like,
Mhm.
there's no one person that's got all that down pat. So, I mean, part of me wants to say, hey, man, more power to you. The other part of me is like, hey, man, just, realize the impossibleness of what you're seeking here. This perfection of the whole construction workflow, man. It's chaos,
Yeah.
project to project.
Oh, it is. Oh, geez. Well, I mean, that's something, that stays constant. It's funny, but in the construction kind of realm, at least for now, and in our lives in general, I guess it's change, right? Change and chaos it's always constant.
Especially now, man. Whenever I talk to people these days, I always say, "Hey, look, man. I know the world's on fire right now, but like that's my openers. Like, man, there's a lot going on. We
Yeah.
can't control it. But let's have this conversation anyways.
Yeah.
So you mentioned four so far. What's the fifth one there?
Well, I mean, I
Oh,
did
generative
want to.
design.
Yeah,
Generative,
it would be generative design. Now, I did want to add in there too, though, the integrated the precast integration. That is a nice tool as well. But yeah, generative design would be on my list just because I would say with generative design, because it comes great like uh, future kind of prospects, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah.
that's really where it is. I
Wasn't
just
there
keep
a
thinking
generative?
about it.
Isn't there a? I mean, generative design is a hot topic these days. We
Yeah.
got firms that people that we want to interview at some point in time when the world's not on fire
Hmm.
about doing generative design with existing infrastructure, all that GIS data, all that stuff. Like there's so many possibilities. I think this first few steps into Revit right now is kind of a
Hmm.
I don't know. It's a good
Well, they're
step in
baby
the right.
steps. They're
That's
baby
exactly
steps.
it. Yeah.
They're baby steps. So there are sample studies that are available, right? In Revit 2021, you're going to see a 3-box massing, which varies the heights and the relative positions of 3 mass volumes to study their visual impact while also calculating the surface areas and their volumes. A workspace layout, so you can create a desk configuration in a room, taking into account doors, windows, columns, all that kind of stuff. Calculate your distance to your exits, views to the outside, all that kind of stuff. And then optimize window views, so you can generate viewpoints within your model and calculate scores for your quality of views to the outside from each of these points. So in this way, I'm saying it's very cool, right? But I'm waiting for a little bit more, right? We wanna kind of see a little bit more in that aspect of well, let me just say that this is out of the box too, right? So we know that there are people out there that are pushing the limit with their own Dynamo scripts that are doing some crazy stuff in generative design in terms of just specifying their parameters and the lot size and the needs and the occupation status, things like that, and essentially just building their own model from these types of parameters, which is great. But right now, out of the box, we are seeing this enablement um, through, you know, well, through this type of generative design. But what I do also like with this, as I've said, it gives us more to the future, right? Is that you can actually build your own custom studies in Dynamo. Of course, as I've said, people have already built their own scripts, but generative design in Revit does offer you that customizable framework. So even if you're just trying to figure it out, they're giving you the kind of the bones, right? And letting you kind of uncover what's possible with Dynamo and the different elements in your Revit model to create maybe some different design studies.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool, and it's a good, like you're saying, it's a good first start. Like for me, Dynamo has been kind of uh, unattainable in some instances, right? So having this
Yeah.
stuff we're talking about the scripts or actually the generative design, which if you think about it is a function of Dynamo in some way, right? It's
Yep.
uh, having all this stuff pre-baked using that engine. I'm assuming it's using that engine. I don't know for certain, but
That's what
my
I'd have to
assumption.
say. I mean, with when I saw what was it, propagate connections. When I saw propagate connections in Revit, that was Dynamo. That I knew that was Dynamo in the background.
Yeah, so it only makes sense then that that is probably that engine. But
Yep.
If we're talking about the generative design engine, you can't really talk about that without talking about Dynamo. But that said, it gives everybody that idea of like, hey, this is at least possible. And then you just take it one step further. It's like, all right, well, you're doing this in Revit's native generative design engine, but you know that it's not doing everything you want it to, so you can take it like 10 steps further and think outside the box and make it do a bunch of other stuff just by learning Dynamo. So if anything, in my mind, it kind of just forces you to want to get into Dynamo more.
Yep. It does. Definitely does, man. And I mean, it's funny, but Dynamo's really that kind of as we've seen that entryway for anybody. It's not just for draftsmen. It's just not for people who are fabricating specific things. It's a great tool that you can utilize the data that's there in front of you. I mean, if you can.
It's just daunting though when you look at it though, when you see all these different strings
dude.
of code. Like, oh my gosh, I got to know all this, and it's like 3 miles long worth of nodes and connections. It's like, oh my gosh, all of this to output this, that's a lot. But I don't know, man. I kind of think like back to my old Python days with GIS and C# and SPSS programming, all this stupid stuff that I used to have to do a long time ago. I think once you just get in there and you know what mission you're trying to achieve, like I know that I want to do generative design, but I know that I want to focus on structural elements that that aren't happening whatever with the existing generative design engine. I know I wanted to get there and do that. Well, okay, well that's great. Once now that you know that you have that framework in your head, you can just start plotting out and actually pick those tools up. Again, I don't know if that's how I know a little bit about Dynamo. I haven't written a script yet. So my whole thought is like, okay, once you have a task in mind, that makes it so much easier to learn.
Yeah, you're right. You're right there. I do, well, really like DI roots training and a little bit of the Autodesk stuff that's out there to kind of help tackle that, right? Because I mean, as you said, when you first get in there, even just seeing, if you're not looking at somebody else's script is pretty overwhelming. But you just get in there and you look at almost like a blank version of the Matrix, right? You step in and everything's just blank. You're like,
where do I start?
Yeah. Where do I start?
I like looking at other people's and tweaking theirs. We've been privileged to get a few given to us to tear apart, and I really like that, because then you actually you can sit there and look at like, okay, well, they did this. Well, I want to do that this way, and then we can move this over here. And I don't know, just having somewhere where you can reverse engineer the way stuff works. Like to me, I was a shade tree mechanic forever. Like I would buy cars during tax season when I was in college, fix them up and flip them, and it was so much easier to learn an engine that way, especially when I was younger, than if somebody had tried to give me the foundations of this is how you build this engine, this is how you do this is the way you do this. It's like, okay, well, I'd rather just take it apart and see how it goes, how it was get together. So I mean, to me, Dynamo is kind of the same thing. That said, though, if you are skeptical about Dynamo, or not necessarily skeptical, but you are overwhelmed by thinking about Dynamo, check out the generative design engine inside of Revit 2021. Do some playing around with it, and then where you find that it's lacking, that's when you get your aha moment and start writing some Dynamo scripts that'll fit you. And there's some amazing forums and groups out there that are all they'll go out of their way to help you do anything in Dynamo. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, dude. And honestly, they're starting to kind of make it a little bit easier to use here and there. So I also like reverse engineering scripts because then I can see how it works and I can see where all the nodes go and how they tie, and that gives me an understanding of the structure, right? Because you need to know an understanding of the structure and the flow of how that script's going to go. And really, dude,
You
from
say
going,
that, college boy.
yeah, right. It's funny, but when you're looking at it, then you're like, man, they're breaking this down in a way that you really don't even normally think about in Revit. You're like, man, if I'm going to draw a wall, of course it's going to go from this level, to this level, and this point to this point. Cool. You're not thinking of everything that's involved in those commands, and that's really what Dynamo is. But with this new kind of version, I've looked and I've seen some of the like the new Dynamo structural nodes, and they've got like pick columns, pick elements of category, pick elements of type. Oh, that makes it so much easier. Thank you. I've been in scripts, and it took me, I can't even tell you, it took me like a half hour, and I'm going through picking different nodes, and I'm like, all right, I want this specific category though. So I can't just pick category, get category, because that doesn't work. Because I have to like pick the specific category that I want, and I got to pick which view it's in and all this other stuff. I'm like, no, that's a lot. That's a lot. Is it by object type, and then it's got to go in? Yeah. Anyways, I could keep going.
So the more Autodesk bakes this out, then to where we can, press the buttons, right? Like we know how Revit works, but then we know what the parameter information. We know all this stuff on the back end of Revit, but we want to make it do something. And I don't have time to learn a bunch of code to figure out how to do that. If you bring that element of familiarity. Man, I can't speak.
Yeah, familiarity.
Virgin Bloody Marys. Virgin Bloody Marys hit me, dude.
Yeah, right. Start feeling like some O'Douls on the deployment. It's a St. Pauli's girl.
Oh man.
Oh gosh. Like pickle juice in a bottle.
I'd rather drink
no,
juice than
if you drink like 20 of them, they will not get you drunk. In fact, they will give you a headache before they get you a buzz. But
full and nauseous if you drink 20 of them, man.
Yeah.
Gosh. Yeah, so just a side tangent here. This whole thing, where the 75 days of no alcohol, part of me was thinking, like, well, what am I going to do for alcohol? I've got this bottle of Lefroy over here just staring me in the face. And I'm just like, man, I could finish that. It's like a third of the bottle left. I could crush that for this podcast. That'd be great. And I was thinking, yeah, do I go to the store, get some non-alcoholic beer or whatever? And I'm just like, I can't do that to myself or to my wallet. Sorry, it's not worth it, guys. You'll see me drinking fake Bloody Marys and cold brew coffee. I'll brew anything.
Oh, dude. Yeah, well, yeah. You know what? Brewing with BIM, it doesn't have to just be beer. Maybe we can brew some coffee. I started looking at kombucha.
There you go, man. Yeah, kombucha.
I was like, maybe we can look into something like that. We'll have to. That's a little more learning, right?
Yeah, vinegary tasting drink. Oh, man, that's all up in your neck of the woods. A lot of people there got.
Dude, I don't know. Yeah. I'll have to figure that out. Oh, actually, with the mother, I'll drink, apple cider vinegar with the mother. Some of that. A shot of that every once in a while.
Brags.
Yeah.
Freaking hippies. Oh, man. So,
Yeah, dude, I've been in it, though. I was feeling the same way when we were getting ready to do this. I'm like, I got like half a case of Apocalypse IPA. I got half a bottle of Pendleton, just barely a little bit of that.
You're not gonna make it, then, dude. You're not gonna make it. You've got too much surrounding you. I'm almost completely out of alcohol. I'm definitely out of beer.
Dude, I am like looking at this stuff like this is gonna be insanely hard. Like I was looking at it today. I finished up, work, and I go stand outside. It's beautiful outside. I'm like, man, I might work on the greenhouse for a little bit. Get ready for the podcast. And turn around. I'm like, gosh, that's a beautiful day for a beer, right? IPA on the porch, sit for a little bit. No, we can't do this. No. Honestly, I think that out of everything would be the hardest part of this diet for me which is weird. It makes me feel like an alcoholic, but like not drinking alcohol for 75
we
days.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna make it, man. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, dude, there's something about nice weather, being outside and having a beer. Just as you
Dude.
were saying, I was sitting in my hammock earlier today, and I was just like, my kids were jumping on the trampoline, and it's how I watch them. I sit in my hammock and drink a beer usually,
There you
and
go.
I'm just like, man, I don't have a beer. This sucks. This sucks.
You know what's funny? We just we
We're,
finished the
we're
fire
not
break.
even one day in, guys.
I know, one day in, listen to us here. Yeah, we're probably not gonna make it, but we'll find out. I actually went to the hardware store and I bought these little anchor rings to hang up our hammocks in the backyard off the porch. I'm so excited about that. Not being able to drink beer in the hammock does depress me a little bit, so we'll see.
Yeah, it's I'm gonna start rebuilding my deck this weekend, and something about being on your deck and working with power
Oh,
tools
yes.
goes together. But fortunately, my daughter, who's 7, is holding me to this. She's doing a modified version of 75 hard with me. She's not going to drink a gallon of water. She's 7, but she's going to have 4 8-ounce glasses or something, and she's going to
Mhm.
be a little more conscious with her eating and
Yep.
lower carbs, I guess. And just not working out as hard, that sort of stuff. But she's reading 5 pages a day, not 10 pages a day, and it doesn't have to be self-help book. Her Judy books, whatever. But
Yep.
we're talking about it, and she's so excited. She's so excited for it. So, I'm like, all right, I'm locked in for as long as this little girl goes, and she's got some damn willpower. So,
There you
especially because
go.
I told her last a month on this, I'm going to double her allowance. So, she's she's pretty locked in, man.
Yeah, she's in it.
Yeah.
There you go. Yep. Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. So, we talked probably more about this 75 hard on this podcast than we did with Revit 2021. But Revit 2020 is awesome. 2021 is awesome. So I'm told until I've seen the videos. Haven't gotten to play with it yet. David has.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
That-
I've gotten to play with it for a little bit now. I will not say it's without its bugs because I have not gotten to test everything yet. I see that they have patched quite a few things, especially with that the MEP workflow like collaboration issue. There was a hole with collaboration at some point. I remember.
well,
Just
everything I've seen so far, it shows that it was more stable than 2020 when it was released. So it seems like a
that's
pretty
what I'm seeing.
so far.
Yes, and I'm hoping that that remains the same. We got to test it out for a couple of weeks and kind of see what it does. But I'm very hopeful for it. It looks like a good build. There are a lot of features, as I said. There, I mean, I didn't even go over some of these features, guys. I mean, the integration with FabCAD MEP. There's so many different things that we could say. The slanted walls,
So
realistic
you've
views.
piqued my interest. You've piqued my interest more. So I'm all about the MEP workflows, especially
Yep.
keeping everybody in Revit as much as possible. Um, is there what's the further integration with Fabrication Academy P? Are there am I
So I
able to
know.
schedule more Fabrication Academy P information? Like, I'm just curious, what's
Oh
the
yeah, dude. I mean, well, it's not only just like the scheduling. They've improved like the panel scheduling, the circuit naming. They've actually brought in where is it? The Revit extension for MEP fabrication is now fully integrated into Revit 2021.
so I don't have to find the downloads separately? And
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love going to the manage.autodesk.com portal looking for the add-ins, and then like, just what don't I have installed already? Just going down the list.
Yeah, well, I would say the panel schedule nodes, like, okay, so for Dynamo again, but there's the panel schedule nodes that are listed under the sheets in the project browser. Your switchboard circuit phases, you can actually choose those out. The circuit quantity, single phase line to neutral panel boards. They're actually putting quite a bit in terms of MEP with well, a lot of different features here for Revit 2021.
I love it, man. One day we'll be able to stay in Revit whole without having to spool out of different software.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
I
looking
see
forward
it.
to that.
I am too. And what's funny is I see a little bit more of that future. And this is one of those features where you're like, what does this even do? And it's the customized Revit workspace. So when I downloaded Revit 2021 and I opened it, it actually asked me what my discipline and my job role was. So it asked me what I do and how I do it, different things like that. And it helps me customize the kind of overlay, the outlay, good Lord, the kind of outline of Revit for me, right? And helps give me the access to the tools that I need. So I'm like, man, that's kind of funny, but it's, I mean, it can be, I want to say both sides of the coin. A hindrance in some ways of thinking, because some people utilize different workflows through, maybe using some of architectural walls as beams, or, what have you, because it works in their workflow. Maybe it's not the right, specific way that it's supposed to be used, but that's what they do, and that's how it works, and that's the quickest and the best way for them, right? So it's a new way of thinking in terms of building this workspace, customizing it to what you do, but also I think it's a step in the right direction with everything that we're starting to kind of get into with generative design, Dynamo, and the more features that we're getting to with structural and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, just everything. And knowing that we can start, let's say, staying inside of Revit, and let's say, what's your flavor, right? Let's go with mechanical design. Okay, and here are all the tools. We have all these awesome features that are either integrated, or here's what you typically see with this type of workspace. Great, gives people a great starting point, right? And then we can kind of go from there. It's just like a project template, but giving us different ways to customize it.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's I don't know, I always like the ability to customize stuff, and you seem super nerdy when you have a your own customized setup too. So maybe that's why all of us like it. But I don't know. I'm excited to play with it. I was hoping to have it in time for this podcast, but haven't had a chance to do it, and I'm not willing to download it on one machine, knowing I'm getting another one.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I agree with that. I agree. If you're gonna move,
Pain about to install software, man. Come on.
yeah. Man, now I got a movie stuck in my head and I cannot figure out what it is. Now I was gonna send you a meme, but can't find it now. It's like an '80s movie about nerds. It's
Revenge of the Nerds.
Revenge of the Nerds. That's it. Yes, Revenge of the Nerds. That's it. Awesome movie. There it is. Yep. I love it. Anyways,
Man.
Anyways, yeah. Off on another tangent. But dude, I think
Podcast.
I think,
We should just call it tangents.
yeah, right. Bim with tangents. Or bimming with tangents.
Brewing with tangents.
Heck yeah. But no, I'm excited for the new Revit 2021, and I'm kind of excited at where we're going and how design is kind of incorporating more construction.
I think it's hard. Honestly, man, I think it's hard to do an honest review, a detailed, honest review. 2 weeks after software's out. I think, in all honesty, we should be playing with the software. This was premature on our part, but at the same time, we're like, you know what? We got to get out there. We got to start telling people, what the cool features are. Yeah. We want to show.
I wanted to download it.
Yeah.
I wanted to download it and open it and talk about it.
But I think in 3 months from now, time's really going to be the tell. It's really going to be the judge at how Revit 2021 is. Who's found the most uses and the best use cases. So maybe at that point in time, 2-3 months from now, towards the end of the summer, we probably should do like a comparison between 2020, 2021 maybe, and
Yeah.
talk about what have been the most useful features that have come out in 2021. I guess I don't know. I'm just thinking outside the box here,
No, dude, that's a
and
good idea.
that's probably good because at that time we would have both quit 75 hard by then. Who am I kidding? We're gonna fall off tomorrow, but
Yeah, we'll see, but
oh,
probably I'm not gonna lie to
oh
you.
yeah. Quick side tangent. Another thing with 75 hard is you're supposed to drink a gallon of water a day, man. Are you on this?
So I've actually been filling this up repeatedly throughout the day. This is my refillable cup, and you know what's funny? The Army actually trained me to do that. I used to carry around a gallon of water every day. I put lemons in it. It's not too hard for me to do that. The only hindrance I find is that I have to pee just so much during the day. It's not, and it's not like the first day that you start drinking the gallon of water, you're like, wow, this is great, I can do this. It's that second or third day that you're continuously drinking that water where you're like, I am peeing too much. I think I'm peeing too much. Like, no.
I know that feeling, man. Yes.
Yeah. You're
I
you're
normally probably
questioning if that much water is really a good thing.
yeah. Like I haven't drank water in like 30 minutes. I peed 3 times. What's going on here? It's all just sort of, all sort of.
Yeah.
Before we end this podcast, I want to talk about the 75 hard challenge just a little bit. Um, so David Corticus, who was on our last episode, we stalked him on social media like we always do. He, did the hashtag 75 hard. David and I got to Googling real quick. We're like, what the hell is the 75 hard? And it's kind of, there's a definitely a physical aspect to it, but it's also a mental. It's all about like self-improvement, full, roundedness, self-improvement, challenging your mind just as much as you challenge your body.
Dude, but
When you think
what's
about,
funny is you and I have been on this kind of I don't even know what to call it, but we've been on this self-improvement kind of bandwagon, I want to say, but not really a band, but we've been on this
it's a
like
path. I
self-improvement
think it's a path for
path.
us.
Yes, there
Yeah,
you go.
yeah.
Path. Thank you. We've been on this self-improvement path for years now. Like, let's think just a couple years ago, you, Paul, and I bought the journals because we were looking into stoicism, right? And really chaining, like harnessing your thought, dude. I mean, really, you think
Yeah.
about it. You look at the Marcus Aurelius. Gosh, what is his book? Memories. I want to call it, but
Memoirs, memories.
yeah, something like that. His memoirs.
And we should have wrote that in our journal.
Dude, hey, that yeah, right. That was a really good book, and just taking into account like we're at that point in life where it's some of the best things that you can do is just try to continuously improve yourself, looking at what you can. Yeah, and this 75 hard play meditations. I'm like, well, actually, yeah, meditation. That's a good thing. Yeah, but meditations by Marcus Aurelius. Yes, just I think the 75 hard kind of plays right into that. Now, again, the hardest struggle I have with it is the no alcohol. But other than that, like self-improving, holding yourself to working out, let's say twice a day, making one of them outside, drinking water, taking pictures of yourself. Just I think it's good.
I think you're gonna learn. Like, I mean, I think you know this, but different parts of this are going to be hard to us at different times. So at the beginning, no alcohol is going to be a pain in the butt. Maybe on some special holiday or birthday or something like that, a friend's birthday,
Yeah.
might be hard for alcohol. But for the most part, after the first 15 days, it's not a problem. Working out. So when we have to go exercise outside for 45 minutes, it's 2 exercises each day, one outside for 45 minutes. If the weather's not nice, or if the weather is nice but you're cooped up inside with a sick kid, like there are so many different things that are going to challenge us at different points. It's just kind of getting in the right mindset and committing. And you're right, man, we've been on this path for a long time. we're always looking for different ways to kind of grow our minds and improvement, man. We're all about self-improvement. Like, we don't know
Always
shit. We
about
just want to keep
self-improvement.
learning. Yeah.
Yep.
We want to keep learning, keep adapting, keep growing. And honestly, that's actually probably how this podcast, more often than not, spun out, is you and I having conversations about what if, we did this in BIM, or we did this, or we did this, or, what if we changed this? And it's where these long drunken rants came out of, man.
This is true. We sit on the phone and just drink and talk about BIM stuff. And we're like, hey, man, what's going on with you? What are you seeing? What are you seeing? Oh, man, that's so cool. We should record this. We should record this. And here we are.
Let's throw it on the internet and get three listeners. And then, here we are, several thousand later. So thank you, all you loyal fans that like to watch us rant and talk about nothing. It's awesome.
Yep.
And if you ever do want to join us on the podcast and rant and talk about nothing with us, we'd love to have you.
We'd love to have you. Just reach out. Let us know. Speaking about that, man, I do want to start, maybe putting a poll out there, seeing if we can get some feedback in terms of what people are seeing, or anything, again, that you want to share. Right? Anything.
Yeah, I'm for it, man. I always ask people that, I'm pretty big on LinkedIn these days, reaching out to people and, figuring out who's following who, and having, oh, that guy's a BIM god. I want to get in his connection, whatever. Just nerding on the BIM gods. I always ask people that. They're like, oh my God, I love your podcast. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, what should we talk about next? Oh, I don't know. Like, come on, give us some real feedback, guys. Let us know. Everybody's always quick to tell us what we should be drinking, but nobody so far has given me a topic.
Yeah, actually, I was thinking about that today too. Where are we going next? What are your thoughts here while we're in the 75 hard? Where do you want to go? Next week's episode. What are you thinking? Yeah.
Oh man, I think next week. Man, we got a long way before we get to our brewing episode. Now
that's true. That's true. That's
gonna be a good one. That's a way to get out of this when we get there, is to end the 75 days is get there. But I don't know, man. I've got no thoughts on it. I'm sure it'll come to me later this week like it normally does. I'm like, shit, I want to talk about this, guys.
That's what I'm thinking. I mean, I have a couple ideas, but I mean, what's funny is usually we'll get midweek about Wednesday or Thursday, and it's like, hey, this how are you feeling with this? Like, just last week we were talking about educating BIM, and we want to have some BIMversations, right? We really want to break it down and start talking about spreading the BIM gospel, right? Sharing the BIM gospel, like talking about what BIM does and how we can bring younger generations into construction or into, technology, design, what have you, by using technology. That's always something awesome. And
well, I mean, that's a good topic always. I always like that. It's getting younger people involved, not to steer them away from the road to college, but just let them know that college doesn't have to be the way for you to get to where you need to. Somebody with too many degrees who found this, this career by happenstance, GIS to survey to construct out. It's a weird path that you're going to take to get to where you're going. Got degrees that have nothing to do with what I do, but I'm here, man. I love it, and there's a path out there for everybody. I've got a friend that teaches at a juvenile detention center, and troubled kids, just looking to make their lives better and improve and stuff. So he teaches them like Revit and stuff. And he and I go back and forth about, hey, what are you, you've got this student in your class, what does he want to do? Oh, he wants to go to college. And it's like, oh, that's the best thing for him. Let's do this. Get him in here, get him hooked up with these trades or these things. And ultimately, they're learning Revit in a juvenile detention center. Not getting much exposure outside of the basics, but dude, that's a damn good footing to get out of a bad situation and own it. So
It
Whether
is.
you're in a bad situation or a good situation, maybe you're in this COVID-19 situation, you lost your job. Look, man, when construction picks back up, we need BIM. This is actually forcing us to put more emphasis on our coordination and pre-construction processes, so that by the time we get to construction, it's taking shorter times. There's less rework, and if there is a shutdown, God forbid, it's less impactful to our business.
Yep. I agree.
So,
I agree. And it's just it's a different situation, but it's at a time where we can, as you say, improve ourselves. Right? We can improve
yeah,
ourselves in many different ways.
yeah. So I like your idea, man. I like hey, let's have a conversation about getting people involved with BIM at a younger age. I mean, we could do 10 episodes over that. That'd be awesome.
Oh
Come
yeah.
up with those ideas, the different trade organizations, unions, schools, all that stuff that we've been involved with. But I also like the idea of kind of piggybacking on what we chatted about last week. Um, so David Corticus brought up some great points there, where he was talking about his whole integrated coordination process, and we got these integrated tools already, but you know maybe doing a comparison between that and the standard coordination process, like where you're in a silo, you've got these long 8-hour BIM meetings, and however long they are, and you're jumping on screen shares, and people are copying pasting stuff in Bluebeam, and like it's a very disconnected, disjointed workflow. I'd love to probably break down something like that compared to the benefits of a more collaborative platform where we're issue tracking and communicating
Yeah.
and recording all that. I don't know. What do you thought? What are your thoughts?
Dude, I think that's great. I think it sounds good, honestly.
All right. Well, we'll figure it out before next week, guys.
Yeah,
Promise.
we'll figure it out, and thank
Figure
you.
it out.
Figure it out. Figured out.
Figure it out.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. Speaking of, thank you again for joining us for another episode of Brewing with BIM, guys, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. And if you see us next week with an alcoholic beverage in our hands, try not to judge us too hard.